recorded and the case presentation after will not be. All right, thank you, Kristen. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here. And just so to explain a little bit about the Suicide Prevention Center of New York, we are an arm of the New York State Office of Mental Health. And we are the leading entity for suicide prevention in New York State. And we cover all the lifespan, right? So I am the director of school and youth initiatives, so I work mainly with schools and youth. But we also have a section for community, for veterans, for working age men, for uniformed personnel. So there's a lot of different divisions within our office. So we don't just do schools, we can also work with everyone else in the community. So you know that's available. So there's myself within the schools, and there's the youth project manager, who is Emily Derenbacher. And you can always reach out to any of us with any questions or anything like that. So I'm going to start today kind of talking about a framework that is familiar to most people who work in schools, and that's the MTSS framework, right? So when we think about suicide prevention, we want to think of it in a MTSS type of framework. So, in that tier 1, we want to make sure that all school staff, right, are trained in the risk factors and the warning signs and how to make a proper referral within the school when they're concerned about a student. We want to make sure that we're doing those basic universal things of social emotional learning with our students and our staff. We want to make sure that we have a positive school climate, right? Does every student feel like they belong and are accepted at school? Or are there some of those groups that maybe don't feel like they belong, or are hearing, slur words about them as they walk down the hallway? A lot of times our LGBTQ plus kids, don't feel like they belong. And nowadays too, our refugee students are sometimes feeling that, they're not accepted at school. So we want to make sure that we have a positive school climate. We want to make sure everybody knows how to get help. So not just staff, but students, if they're concerned about themselves or, a friend, do they know the importance of reaching out to an adult? And I'm sure there's many of you that have spoken with students. I did it all the time in my prior role. Who said, well, I stayed up all night with Johnny because I was concerned that they, might hurt themselves, right? So we really need to educate our kids too, that they're not in this by themselves, and the importance of reaching out to a trusted adult. Are there standardized, procedures and policies around all of this work? And we want to make sure that our parents are educated too. If they're concerned about a student, do they know about all the different resources that are available? When we get up into tier 2, right, we want to be able to identify early on those students who are struggling with any type of mental health concerns so that we can give them support, from the very beginning. We also want to, make sure that we are screening any students who might be at risk properly and making proper referrals. So that when we're screening a student who comes out low risk, we don't want to send them to the ER, right? And if we're coming and screening a student that's a high risk, we don't want to send them home alone on the bus. So making sure that we're making those proper referrals. We want to make sure that we have good communication and pathways, not only with our families, but also any community organizations that would be able to help us in this incident. So, private practice or any types of organizations like that can also offer counseling services. And it's really important to know too, who has the waiting list, right? Because there's nothing like, referring a family to a service and, there's a 6-month waiting list. So what can we do in the meantime also? And then up to our tier 3, right? So our students who maybe were hospitalized or have been away for a long time, do we have policies and procedures in place for when they come back to school so that we can have a meeting, so that we can talk about how we can, properly support them within school. I'm sure you see kids will come back and they have a safety plan, but that safety plan doesn't work for school, right? If one of their things to do is to go to grandma's house and bake cookies, well, we can't do that in the middle of the school day. So we need to try to set up a safety plan specifically for school. Who are the people that they can go to within the school building during the school day that can help support them through this? And then we want to make sure that we have proper referrals in place for any students who might be at risk, and making sure that we can properly refer them. Two documents that I say that schools should always have are here, and I will make sure we get the links to those to you so that, and maybe you already have them. One is on the right-hand side. That is our guide for suicide prevention in New York schools. And that will really kind of walk you through that MTSS framework and different resources that will, help you along each way. And also the framework that I'm going to be talking about moving on. And then on the left-hand side is the guide that was made by New York State Ed. After our guide came out, they're like, that's a great guide. And they said, we're going to make a companion guide and make sure that we send it out to schools. So that's available on the New York State website, New York State Ed website. But it was also great resources. It also talks about building policies and procedures in all these different areas. And it has some great resources for documentation and what documentation you need to have in place, how long you need to keep it for, and things like that. So I encourage you to check those out. So this is our framework that we work off of at the Suicide Prevention Center. And we say that everything needs to start with very, very strong policies and procedures. That's our strong foundation. So we want to make sure that we have strong policies and procedures in these 4 areas. So in training our faculty and staff about building resiliency in our students, a plan to help a student who's at risk for suicide, and a plan for after a suicide loss. And it really doesn't even have to be a suicide loss. It could be any traumatic event. And we want to make sure that we encompass all of that with family engagement and community partnership. Okay, we can't do this all by ourselves. We need help in this. So that is our framework that we provide all of our trainings from. So I'm going to go through and talk about the trainings that are available through the Suicide Prevention Center of New York. Just so you know, all of our trainings are provided free of charge, and there's no charge for them. We do have trainers across New York State, but if for some reason there isn't a trainer available in your area, either Emily and I are always willing to come and train. We travel all across New York State to do that. We also offer train the trainers in each of our trainings. So if you have someone within your own school district that would like to be trained in any of our trainings, on our website, there's a link saying I'm interested in becoming a trainer, and we can let you know when the next training is available. So the first training that I'm going to talk about really gets into building those policies and procedures, so making that strong foundation. And it's called Creating Suicide Safety in Schools. We often refer to it as CS3 for short. So this is a 6-hour training, and it gets into, it's really like a needs assessment and action planning. So we will help your school walk through, where are you on all these different areas using that framework, right? And where are you excelling, and where might you need some more help? And then we will talk about all of the different resources and everything that are available in all of those different areas. So after we do the needs assessment, we'll help you with building your action plan and how you want to move forward. So it's a 6-hour training. We like to have one school administrator there, because they're the ones who usually can decide, like, yes, this is something that we will do in our school, or no, we won't. They also tend to know what's coming down the pike, right? Like if for funding things or other initiatives that are going to be in place. Along with them, we like to have a few mental health staff that can come to the training too, because they've got their pulse on what's going on with the kids in the schools, and they, are the ones who are really doing the work. So we like a team to come. It's great when we can do this as a district-wide thing, and we have like each level there along with some district staff, and because then you can really make a whole district plan together. So like I said, we'll really get into the framework with that, and we help you around how to build those policies and procedures afterwards. And we don't just leave you there. We're always available for consultation, and can always help with implementing your action plan. So from there, we're going to start moving into some of that training of our staff. So we have a training called Suicide Safety for Teachers and School Staff. This is kind of your tier 1 universal training that you want all school staff to receive. And when we say all school staff, we really mean everyone. Anyone who is going to encounter a child should know what to do if they have concerns about them. So we always mention like bus drivers, right? Oftentimes they're forgotten, but they're the first ones who see the kids in the morning, the last ones to see them in the afternoons. They often see kind of what's going on in the neighborhood or, at the house. And they often will see that change from students, right? That are really those concerns of those warning signs. So this is a 1-hour training, can easily be done in a staff meeting. And it gets into what are the risk factors for youth suicide? What are the warning signs? Are those things that make us like, something's off with this child, right? And then more importantly, it really talks about the school staff's very critical role, right? Because they're on the front line. They're the ones who see the kids every single day, and they're the ones who are going to notice those changes, but very limited role. We don't want the school staff becoming mental health professionals. We don't want them doing counseling. We don't want them assessing for suicidality, right? So we talk about this very critical but very limited role and the importance of making a referral to the mental health staff in the building. One nice thing about this training is that we really individualize it to the school building. So we will ask either an administrator or someone from the mental health staff to get up and talk about what is the process in our building for making a referral that you're concerned about for a student. We also get into if you're very concerned that this student might be at risk for harming themselves, don't wait until the end of the day when the student has already left, right? Like we need to make an immediate referral, right? Walk the student down to the counseling office, right? Don't put it in an email because when do you guys check your email? The end of the day, right? So we get into that important information too. We also offer this monthly on our school website or on our website as a train the trainer. So if you wanted to get someone in your district trained as a trainer, they can go onto our website and sign up. It's free. The train the trainer is a full day training, but we will get you trained up. We'll send you supplies and you can train within your own district. If you want to start by having someone else come out and do the training, we can do that. But then we highly encourage to try to get someone trained within your district. So then we have kind of our tier 2, right? Which is our helping students at risk for suicide. So this is really for the mental health staff in the school. We say that you should always have someone in the building who can assess for suicidality for a student. So if you're in a smaller district and you only have one school counselor who's split between 2 buildings, you might want to think about having someone else trained, like a school nurse. Or even an administrator, but you got to pick the right administrator for that. So this is a full day workshop. It's a 6-hour training. We do offer 6 CEUs for free, for licensed social workers, licensed mental health counselors, and school psychologists. And this is where we get into how do you properly assess a student using this Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Scale? How do you properly refer, right, at each of those different levels? So low, moderate, and high risk. And we also get into safety plan. So how do you properly safety plan using the Stanley Brown Safety Plan? What's nice about this training, lots of times you'll go to a training for the Columbia or the Stanley Brown, and it's very clinically focused. Like, how do you do that work in a clinic? This is very school focused. How do you do this work in a school? So it really gets into working with parents, but also how to do this in a developmentally appropriate way, right? Because I'm sure you know, we have a lot of our younger students in elementary school now that we're having to assess for suicidality. So we have a lot of resources on how to do this work in a developmentally appropriate way. And then we get into, working with families, but we also get into the paperwork. What is the documentation that you need to have in place? Who should have access to it? Where should it be kept? How long should it be kept for? So it's a pretty extensive training that even people who have already been trained in the Columbia and in the safety planning really say this was a great training because it really focuses on doing this work in a school. Then our kind of tier 3 training, is our crisis team curriculum. This is a 6-hour training. We can do this in a variety of ways. We can do it as a full day training. We can break it down into 2 half days, or we can do it in 6 individual 1-hour sessions. What's nice about this training is it comes with a book, and you will have a plan when you're done for when there's any type of traumatic event. It's called Building Response to Traumatic Death and Suicide, but I always like to say it's any traumatic event. Many times schools will say, we have our crisis team. We know what to do if there's a fire or an intruder and things like that. This is a different kind of crisis team. This is the crisis team that comes in and supports the building emotionally after an event. We've been working with a school district that had a flood in last spring, and they got trained in this, and they were like, oh my gosh, we've used so much of this to help deal with, the flood and everything else. So they were very excited that they had it. So what's nice about this is we will start with who should you have on your team? Who are the members that you should have there? What are their roles and responsibilities? We have a checklist of what should be done in the first 24 to 72 hours after a loss. Then we'll get into how to identify vulnerable students or others who might be affected by this, students and staff. And then we'll get into, what needs to be done, what follow-up needs to be done. How do you communicate with students versus staff versus parents, right? How do you work with parents when there's a traumatic event that has happened? And then we'll get into even long-term challenges like memorials. Everyone has really, really good intentions after there's a loss. And many times people will say, we want to plant a tree out front for Johnny. But what people don't remember is that now every time students walk into the building, they're reminded there's Johnny's tree, and it sets a tone for the day. Or things like, what are you going to do when that tree then needs to be cut down because the building's going to be expanded, right? So really getting into the safe messaging and doing this work in a very safe way. So again, 6 hours, we can do it in a variety of different ways. And then we have some of our student programming that we offer. So many of you might be familiar with Sources of Strength. We have a grant where we can bring in 5 schools across New York State a year to get trained in Sources of Strength, and then they're supported for 3 years. And then hopefully after that, they can, maintain it themselves. So we can, again, completely free for the school districts. There's just not even an application, it's more of an interest form that you fill out and kind of a readiness scale to see how ready your school is. If you're not, we'll help you get ready. And again, we can bring in 5 schools a year for this. The other program that we have is called Invisible Mentoring. So this is a program that helps us identify students who do not have a trusted adult in the school. As you know, a trusted adult is the #1 protective factor, not just for youth suicide, but for many, many things, right? So we want to know those students who don't have a trusted adult. So what you do is you survey the students and you ask who's someone in the school who knows you well outside of the classroom, or there's many different ways that you can ask. You can add it to another survey if you already do a school climate survey. It's pretty easy to work with. What you'll find is about 10 to 20% of the students from your student body will not be able to name a trusted adult. What you do then is you then assign them a mentor. It's called invisible mentoring because we don't let them know that they've been assigned a mentor. This is more of an informal mentorship, right? There's no specific program to follow. There's not, like, many times with a formal mentorship, you have like a book or like, okay, we need to do this worksheet today. This is really just about building relationships. So those invisible mentors, right? We ask for volunteers because they work better than being voluntold. But you match them up in a way that would make it very natural for that adult to interact with that student. So you might say, oh, yeah, I know that kid. His locker is right outside of my homeroom. I see him every morning at his locker. Great. And what you're then charged with is the invisible mentor is charged with giving what we call a hug, which is a hello, an update, and a goodbye. Very simple. Just right. It's all about that school climate. It's all about building those relationships. And so every week, the mentor is, charged with giving this hug. So it can be as easy as, hey, Johnny, nice Def Leppard t-shirt. I don't know, but let's go with it, right? Nice Def Leppard t-shirt. I saw them in concert in 1990, whatever. It was the best thing ever. Hey, have you heard of Led Zeppelin? Yeah, they're great too. Oh, you haven't? You know what? I'll bring in a recording. You can listen to it, right? And then I'm going to check in with you next week and to see what you thought about that. And that's it. It could be about Pokemon. It could be about, hey, you got AirPods in. What are you listening to? It could be like, hey, I saw you at your soccer game. You did great, right? Whatever it is. And we talk about in the training how to find those connections and, make those matches for mentors. The research comes from, this program comes out of University of Michigan and, I'm sorry, not University of Michigan, out of a BOCES, like from Michigan. And what they found is afterwards they have resurveyed the students, and the majority of those students who were assigned a mentor then named that invisible mentor as someone that, they would go to if they needed to. Very easy program to implement. Again, we can train your school districts in this for free. It's about a 4-hour training, and it's online. And actually, we've gotten it down to a little bit shorter than 4 hours, but we can provide support afterwards too. So after you get the training and you survey your students, if you need some support in trying to hook up your mentors, we can help you with that also. And then I just wanted to let you know about the resources that we have available. So we have a lot of 988 materials that we can send out to schools. We've got, your mental health stickers and stuff. We got little, fidget pens and stuff that have the 988 number on them. Lots of stuff like that. And you can request those materials through our website. You can also look at all of the different trainings that we have, including our community trainings on our website. And we have a ton of resources on our website. So you'll see there, I have some of the pamphlets that we have available. If you're doing a training, we can send these pamphlets out to you. But if you're doing a tabling event, we can send some pamphlets and some, 988 materials out to you. But we have things like what every teacher should know, what every student should know, what every parent should know. How to make your home suicide safer. Sometimes that's a great resource to have. It sometimes is a difficult conversation to have with parents. When you've called them in to say that you're concerned about their student, but it's an easy thing that you can just slip over and share with them. So all of those are available. We also have what we call region leaders in different areas across the state. And these are people who promote our trainings, who are trained in our trainings and can, do the work. And then again, just some information. We've got our website there. And I can share these slides with, do you want me to share them with you, Allison? I can
That
share
would
them
be
with you so
wonderful.
that you can pass them on. And there are links to the guides and everything in there also. And then my email and Emily's email also. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you so much, Kristen, for a wonderful presentation.